Ali Mirzad has barely slept since the Taliban entered Kabul and took over Afghanistan. Now, he lives in Ottawa, but is a member of Afghanistan's Hazara minority group, which has suffered brutal persecution in the hands of the Taliban for many years. Ali has been hearing from other Hazaras in Afghanistan who fear what the Taliban's ascension to power could mean for them. Just last Friday, Amnesty International reported that Taliban fighters killed at least 9 Hazara men after taking control of Ghazni province in July. Here in Ottawa, Ali Mirzad wants the Canadian government to step up to help Hazaras at risk. Ali is also the senior advisor of the Canadian Hazara Humanitarian Services. We've reached him this afternoon. Hi there.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be back on your show.
I know you've family members who are in Afghanistan right now. How challenging has it been to contact them and other Hazaras in the country?
Extremely challenging. Communication anyways before this whole recent humanitarian crisis was not the best in Afghanistan. I mean, the capital, Kabul, had just very few hours of electricity. Internet was just very rare also and very expensive. But now with the humanitarian crisis unfolding there, the situation, the lines are jammed and you can barely reach your family members. I've reached my uncle the last time last Monday, and then after that again this weekend, just for short windows of time, but that's about it. And the whole time that you're not able to speak with them and you're looking and you're glued to the TV and you're exposed to the scenes or social media, it's just traumatizing psychologically and physically, mentally, to go through that.
When you did manage to reach your uncle or others, what have they said to you?
Well, they're worried. Everyone is worried, and they're just, it's just total, utter chaos. No one knows where to go, what to do. My uncle, he has very young children, small children, and he's fearful for the lives of his children. Obviously, they're looking to us for help and for answers, but we don't have any more answers than they do. A lot of the people, the world, everyone heard of the commitment of Canada and other countries. If we just focus on Canada, we're immensely grateful for Canada stepping up and taking the charge and the lead on this humanitarian crisis and committing to save so many people. But the response of the Canadian government is solely focused on those that have made it to the airport and that work for the Canadian government in some capacity, and those that are outside of the country that fled Afghanistan. So for the people like my uncle and so many other people across our community in Canada that have loved ones that are in Kabul, in Afghanistan, they're sitting duck. They're just waiting for their doom. The Hazaras have a very dark history with the Taliban. We have been the victim of genocide at the hand of the Taliban in the 90s. In the last 20 years, we've continued to suffer systematic persecution. UNAMA, the United Nations Mission Assistance in Afghanistan, reported last year that 80% of the terror attacks in Afghanistan was aimed and targeted at the Hazara. So now, obviously, people are concerned with the return of the Taliban. And as you just pointed out, Amnesty International reported that there was an attack on the Hazaras just recently, but that's just one report. There are so many other reports on social media that we know of. And so those are all concerns. And if I can just add also that for those that obviously we're all seeing the chaotic scenes of the airport in Kabul, and those Hazaras that have somehow managed to make it through the mass and the sea of crowd have actually taken beating by the Taliban. We have people that have posted on social media, and we have actually confirmed reports from residents of Ottawa that had loved ones. For one case, the gentleman worked with the Americans, and he had documents. He went to the airport all the way to the 4th layer of perimeter and basically near the glass door, and he was just steps away from being saved. But he took a beating from the Taliban, and he and his wife and his children were beaten, and he came back home. And so many other cases, just like that. We also know that the former elite unit number 1 or commando special forces of the former Afghan government who have surrendered to the Taliban and now work for the Taliban, they control the inside of the airport. And these people also have actually beaten the Hazara community and Hazara people that were trying to flee the country.
So what do you make of the Canadian government's commitment? You mentioned a moment ago the being grateful that for what had been done, but you were concerned the government's initial breakdown of who will be accepted didn't clearly spell out Hazaras.
No, originally when first of all, I have to say that while I do commend the government's response, I feel like so many other people that I am in touch with that are not necessarily from Afghanistan or Hazara, just human rights activists and advocates, lawyers, who all say the same thing, that we feel Canada was kind of late joining the rescue operation for the interpreters, for starter. And then when they announced the 20,000 resettlement project, this was announced 2 days before a federal election was called. And it was announced with a lot of unclarity. At first they were saying that it was going to be 20,000 to be resettled. Then they said actually the interpreters are part of that resettlement project. And now basically they've made it clear that it's only for those that have made it outside of Afghanistan and those that are inside the airport that worked for them. There's no particular details on those, for example, that work for the Canadian government, but that are outside of the perimeters, how Canada is doing or what is it doing to make sure that they get in. And in the wording that the government was describing the vulnerables that this program of resettlement would encompass, it did not specify the Hazaras. We had to raise our voice and speak out about it. And, we're happy and glad that the minister is now using the term Hazara in his recent press conferences, as recent as yesterday. But we feel that those that are outside the airport, they're sitting duck, and I don't know what the government's plan are for saving them. Our organization, the Canadian Hazara Humanitarian Services, is flooded with emails, WhatsApp messages, Facebook Messenger calls, telephone calls directly from Afghanistan from people that are just crying for help and asking for directions. We don't know what to tell them. We don't know if we should tell them to go to Pakistan, to the border, or to sit in Afghanistan because Canada will not forget about you and will save you.
And Ali, then I just have a minute left, but what would you want to see happen? Because officials have said Canada will help with evacuation as long as the security situation allows, which is the big question, of course. But what would you want to see happen now?
As difficult as it may sound, I would like to see Canada engaging with the Taliban directly and not to rely on Americans, because it seems that our entire effort and operation is based on the presence of the Americans, who have made it abundantly clear that they will leave on the 31st of August. So what will happen after the 31st? So it would be nice if Canada takes the lead in the conversation and start a dialogue with the Taliban directly.
Ali Mirzad, we're going to hold it there. Thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Alan.
Ali Mirzad, Senior Advisor of the Canadian Hazara Humanitarian Services. If you have thoughts on what he had to say, all in a day.